Hi, how you doing? Justin here. Today we're going to start a little chat about ear training and why I think it's really important that you get into it. And we'll be following this lesson with a new series on ear training for guitar players, specifically not just learning the intervals by ear, but how to play the intervals on the guitar. Okay, it's a pretty big deal. I think it's the one area a lot of people kind of gloss over, but it's a really important part of becoming a musician. All of the music schools have an ear training kind of part of their courses. If you're doing a degree somewhere, you're going to be doing some ear training. I found it a real shock to the system when I started doing it at music uni. I was 18 years old. I hadn't really done anything like that before, and I found it really difficult compared to a lot of the other guys that had done other instruments like piano and violin, where they kind of focus on ear training right from the beginning. So I really can't stress the importance of it enough, and I want to in this video talk about the benefits of doing it to hopefully inspire you to go the distance and do the course properly and reap the benefits of doing it. It's not a particularly difficult thing to cultivate either. I think if you can allow yourself like 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week, that will be a great amount, and over the course of maybe 4 to 6 months you should really be able to develop your ear pretty well in that kind of period of time. Although saying that, it's still a lifetime study, so I'm still working on it, and some of the exercises I'm going to be sharing with you are still things that I'm doing even now this week. I've been practicing my ear training. So what I want to go through with you today is what I think are the top 7 benefits that you're going to get by doing some ear training, okay? And the first one, I think, is the most important, and it's a really big deal, is learning to play what you hear. And by that I mean being able to hear a musical thought, a series of notes or a melody or a chord or something in your musical mind, and being able to express that out the instrument. And I think that's really where it comes, the idea of expression through the instrument is expressing something from a musical mind, not just wobbling the fingers around on a scale that you've learned. But I think it goes deeper than that, and it's something I think that we should all aspire to. It's something I'm still working on. I still practice ear training and learning to express through the instrument stuff that I can hear, and it doesn't go right all the time, but I think it should be the goal for most of us. And a good little test that I've done with lots of students, we're going to talk more about this in a future lesson, is being able to play a melody. And a great first one that I usually kind of test people with is, can you play Happy Birthday? Okay, so we all know Happy Birthday. We've listened to it all of our lives. We've probably all sung it hundreds of times as well. So can you just sit down and play Happy Birthday anywhere on the fretboard, starting on any finger on any string? Okay, that's a really good test to see kind of how well your musical mind and your fretboard are kind of related to each other. If you haven't done this kind of thing, maybe you want to stop this video now and go try. A good place to start if you're not used to doing this kind of thing, a kind of an easy area, is to start with your first finger in the 5th fret of the 3rd string, because that way you don't actually have to move out of position and you'll just be on the thinnest 3 strings there. So have a go at doing that and see if you can play Happy Birthday, and kind of take a look at how you go when you're doing that as well. Can you do it really quickly, faultlessly, or do you make a few mistakes but you find the right notes eventually, or you just really can't do it at all? Okay, but the goal should be that you could play Happy Birthday starting on any finger, on any string, in any key, and just be able to play it because you know it in your musical mind. And the course that I'm going to be taking you through will hopefully give you the ability to be able to do that, and a whole lot more as well. So that's the most important thing, is going to be able to play what you hear in your musical mind. Thing number 2 is being able to transcribe solo, so working out stuff off records. So, I do a lot of videos on how to play stuff, and I encourage you, hopefully you've seen me encourage you to do some stuff on your own too, and a lot of listening to the original recording. So, I get stuff wrong, and there's a lot of wrong stuff on the internet as well. I've seen people play all sorts of wrong stuff because they read it somewhere, and they haven't really listened to what they've been doing. My favorite example is a student who'd got a tab off the internet for House of the Rising Sun, but was playing it as an A major chord at the beginning instead of an A minor chord, and it sounded atrocious. I'm like, dude, that's like totally the wrong chord. Do you not hear that? He was like, well, but the book said that. I'm like, well, yeah, but the ear always trumps all of that stuff. If something sounds good, it is good. So really developing your ear is super important, and kind of enhancing your ability to transcribe and work stuff out off records means that if you're using a tab and it's got a mistake in it, you'll recognize it. It also means you don't have to use tabs at all. You just listen to stuff and work it out. It's a very satisfying experience, and developing your ear is all about hearing the relationship between different notes and hearing chords and that kind of stuff. So obviously when you're transcribing, becomes a lot easier. If you've developed a really good relationship between your ear and your fingerboard, when you hear a particular melody, you should be able to find it on the instrument. So if the solo that you're listening to goes da, ba, da, that kind of thing, you know, da, ba, or if it goes ba, da, or if it goes ba, da, you know from the first one where the second one is. It doesn't give you perfect pitch, so it's not like, you know, I'm sure some of you have heard of perfect pitch where you can just hear like the fridge is playing a B flat, or you can hear any note at all and be able to recognize it. I don't have that. I don't know many people that do. I'm sure it's beneficial for those people, but what we can all develop is a really good sense of relative pitch, which is if we know this is one note, what's the next note? And that's how we do it. In the course I'm going to be teaching you is going to be about interval ear training. So that's going to be about hearing the differences between the notes. And if you know where those intervals are found on the guitar neck as well, as soon as you hear one note, you can find the next note pretty quickly. And I think that's a really super beneficial thing to have. So ear training really helped with the transcribing. Number 3. Stronger ears. Now, I know the ear is not physically a muscle like a bicep or whatever, but the more you do ear training and the more you develop your ear, the more detail you hear. So you'll start to really recognize like the tones of stuff, the inflections in the notes, whether it's a hammer-on or a flick off, or whether it's a slide or a bend or whatever. When you're transcribing or working stuff out, it's kind of like your ear is just stronger. Your ears become more powerful at listening. And, you know, being music's about listening, it seems to me to be pretty obvious that developing that skill would be a good thing to do. So, you know, I can't emphasize enough, you know, there's so many reasons. We're only at number 3 so far. Number 4 is understanding what you hear. Now, this is kind of linked with music theory. So if you've got no music theory, understanding what you hear is probably going to be a little bit awkward. But one of the things that I think is really interesting is if you develop your ear training as well as your sense of music theory, that when you start to hear, say, a chord progression, you know straight away that it's a 1-4-5 progression or a 1-5-6-4 or what, you know, common chord sequences. You can recognize melodies, you can recognize scales, like I was using this scale over this particular thing. You start to develop the relationships between the chords and the scales and hearing that stuff, and most of it becomes pretty obvious, you know. And I often can work out songs without even having a guitar in my hands because I can hear the movement of the bass and I can hear the quality of the chords. So it's not that difficult to do that. And it's not some special superpower that I've got. It's just that I've worked a lot on ear training and I've done a lot of transcribing, and those things together really help you. Again, that's kind of to do with transcribing. But if you understand it as well as being able to hear it, then you can manipulate that information further as well. So you can hear, oh, it's a 1-4-5, you could move it into the key that you want and know where those intervals are on the fretboard and be able to play it straight away. It's really, it's a pretty special little feature of ear training. Number 5, confidence in your musicality. Now, confidence is a pretty big trick when it comes to playing music. If you're confident and you've got a certain swagger when you play, people tend to believe it a bit more. If you're very shy and kind of nervous when you play, people don't kind of they don't feel it as much. So you got to be like, yeah, have some of this, you know, when you're playing, and having a grounding in ear training and music theory as well is kind of linked into that a bit as well, I guess. But having some confidence like that in your ability as a musician can really help that kind of come forward when you play. And I think that can be pretty important, that, you know, if you feel inadequate as a musician, like you know that there's some parts missing in your overall musicianship, it always gives you a kind of a weak spot that will stop you being as confident as I think that you should be if you're really trying to present yourself as an artist. You know, that's kind of maybe less important if you're just strumming at a barbecue or whatever, but I think those sort of things can really help. And that kind of ties into the next thing, which is it'll really help with singing. Now, you know, I'm not a great singer. I can kind of sing in tune most of the time, and there's some songs I can sing okay. You know, I wasn't evolved with a great sounding voice. I can kind of sing in tune, but I just my voice doesn't sound great, you know. And but it's fine for like singing and transcribing and interval training and all of that sort of stuff. And I think that kind of thing is really valuable as a musician, just to be able to sing a bit. I'm not saying that you should be, you know, singing in front of a band and suddenly have the best voice that's ever existed, but just being able to sing a little bit and developing a bit of confidence with your singing and your ability to sing in tune, I think would be really helpful just on a musical level. And as guitar players, we should be aspiring to that, I think, you know. So again, interval training, learning to sing between different notes. I already, you know, ba, 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 ba da ba ba. Just being able to find like intervals like that and be able to find them on the guitar neck, I think could be really helpful. It increases your understanding of what's going on with your voice, and it'll help you with the pitching, of course, because you'll be singing it and playing it. And definitely part of the course that we're going to be doing is going to be singing these different intervals. It's a fantastic exercise. So I think that's a really important part. And the last part is really, I think this was a big thing, and I actually got this from Larry Carlton. I was privileged enough to meet him and spend a bit of time and ask him some questions about how he developed as a player and stuff. And I've always tended to think in boxes, like scale shapes and forms and chords and hearing the notes around the chords and stuff like that. But he doesn't seem to do that. He's one of those, he just seems to play anywhere on the fingerboard. And I was talking to him about that, like, how do you see between the positions, and did you hear that? And he just, because his ear training is so far advanced beyond, anything that I could probably ever hope to dream of in my lifetime, but he can hear every note on the fingerboard, no matter where it is. So it makes no difference to him where he's playing on the fingerboard. He would choose to play in a particular part of the fingerboard maybe for the tone or for the sound or for access to particular notes or phrases. But it's not like most of us are probably limited a bit by scale forms that we know and the visual aspect. And I think ear training really helped me to break out of some of that and have the confidence just to particularly if I can't do it personally. I can't do it in jazz situations yet. When the harmonies get really complex, my thinking brain turns back on. But if I'm just jamming some stuff like a Neil Young tune or whatever, and it's much more about the feel of it, I can really turn the hearing part on, and I don't know or care what the scale is or what I'm playing or relative to anything. It's just a sound, and I'm able to kind of try and get that musical sound out of my mind and through the guitar. And I think that's the first few times that happened. I was probably in my 20s, I guess. I hadn't been doing ear training that long, but I'd done a lot of transcribing, and I just realized that sometimes I could be confident enough in just hearing and not thinking. And I think that's usually the best stuff for me. When I'm most happy with what I'm playing is when the musical mind takes over from the thinking mind. So I'm not thinking about scales or shapes or chords or anything like that. It's just somewhere, wherever music comes from in us, makes itself apparent that comes out the instrument. And I think that's kind of at least for me, that's the goal, is to develop those kind of skills so that whenever I'm playing, I'm really trying to express something musical, hopefully that might connect with some other people on some level. And I know that some of this is starting to sound a little bit hippie hurdy-gurdy stuff, but I think it's important. And even if you're a kind of a beginner guitar player, the sooner you cultivate these kind of skills, they'll really infect the rest of your playing and make you more confident. I get a lot of great feedback from my workshops and stuff when people have said that they've got into the ear training and what a difference it's made to their musicality and how they hear stuff and being able to transcribe. And I really know that it makes a big difference. So I hope that you'll join me on this little adventure and work on improving all sorts of aspects of your guitar playing, but particularly with your ear training and the development of the relationship with your ear and your hand, which I think is really important. So look, I hope you enjoy this. There'll be plenty more information and little charts to go along with this course over on the website. So do go and check out JustinGuitar.com as well. If you happen to be just watching on YouTube, loads of stuff over there, more than 1,000 free lessons and plenty more stuff on the way. So look, I hope that might convince you to do more ear training, and I'll see you for the rest of the course very soon. You take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.